The sound of my wife's laughter drifted through the screen door like poison through my veins. I'd just gotten home from another soul-crushing day at the accounting firm, my shirt still damp with sweat from the broken air conditioning in my Honda Civic. The ice-cold beer in my hand was supposed to be my reward for surviving another Wednesday in suburban heck. I honestly don't think this marriage will last another year, Marta's voice carried clearly from our back patio. Dave's falling so far below my level, it's embarrassing. When I married him, he had ambition. Now look at him, driving that piece of junk car, working at some no-name accounting firm. My sister was right about him from the beginning. The beer can crumpled in my grip. Ice-cold liquid splashed across my work shoes, but I barely noticed. 3 women sat around our expensive patio furniture I'd worked overtime to afford, dissecting my failures like surgeons examining a corpse. "You deserve so much better, Marta," came the voice of her sister Linda, the entitled princess who'd never worked a day in her privileged life. "Remember when you dated that lawyer in college? Now he's making partner at Morrison and Associates. That could have been your life." "Don't remind me," Marta sighed dramatically. "Dave used to talk about starting his own firm, becoming somebody important. Instead, he's content being mediocre. It's like he gave up on being the man I married." Her best friend Jessica chimed in with fake sympathy. "Maybe it's time to cut your losses, honey. Life's too short to settle for less than you deserve." I stood there in my own kitchen, listening to my wife of 15 years plan my execution with the casual indifference of someone discussing the weather. The house we'd built together, the dreams we'd shared, the promises we'd made. All of it reduced to a cost-benefit analysis over white wine and cheese. My reflection in the kitchen window showed a 45-year-old man who'd let life beat him down. Thinning hair, soft around the middle, wearing a discount store shirt that had seen better days. When had I become this person? When had I become someone worth discarding? But as I listened to their cruel laughter, something shifted inside me. The hurt transformed into something harder, sharper. These women thought they knew Dave Patterson? They hadn't seen anything yet. I walked through the house, grabbed my keys, and headed for the front door. As I passed the patio, I stopped and slid open the glass door. 3 faces turned toward me, with varying degrees of surprise and embarrassment. "Ladies," I said, my voice steady, despite the rage burning in my chest. "I couldn't help but overhear your fascinating discussion about my inadequacies. Marta, you're absolutely right. Why wait another year? Let's end this charade now." Marta's face went pale. "Dave, I didn't mean—" "Oh, you meant every word," I interrupted, stepping onto the patio. "And you know what? You're right about one thing. I have been settling for less than I deserve. But that ends today." Linda, ever the instigator, couldn't resist. "Dave, you're being dramatic. We were just having girl talk." I turned my attention to my sister-in-law, this pampered princess who'd never faced a real challenge in her life. "Girl talk? Is that what we're calling character assassination now? Tell me, Linda, when was the last time you contributed anything meaningful to society? Besides spending your daddy's money and judging people who actually work for a living? How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? You've been poisoning my wife against me since day one, filling her head with fantasies about the life she deserves. Well, congratulations. You're about to get exactly what you wanted." I looked at each of them in turn. Marta with her guilty expression, Linda with her outraged entitlement, Jessica with her uncomfortable silence. "Enjoy your wine, ladies. Plan whatever you want. But remember this moment, because it's the last time any of you will have the luxury of underestimating me." As I walked away, I heard Marta call my name, but I didn't turn around. The old Dave might have stopped, might have tried to salvage something from the wreckage. But the old Dave was gone, ended by 3 women who thought they were untouchable. I drove aimlessly through our neighborhood, past houses filled with other couples living their quiet lives. My phone buzzed with texts from Marta. Apologies, explanations, pleas to come home and talk. I ignored them all. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror again. But this time, I saw something different. Not the broken man from the kitchen window, but someone harder, someone who'd been pushed too far. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Marta. Unknown number. "You need to know something before it's too late. Meet me at Riverside Park, near the old pavilion. Come alone. A friend." I stared at the message, my pulse quickening. Someone else knew something about my perfect wife and her perfect plans. Someone who wanted to help me fight back. The light turned green and I made a U-turn toward the park. Whatever game Marta and Linda thought they were playing, they were about to discover they'd picked the wrong opponent. Riverside Park after sunset was a different world. The cheerful playground and manicured gardens transformed into shadows and whispers. I parked near the old pavilion, a stone structure from the 1920s that the city kept promising to renovate, but never did. A figure emerged from behind the pavilion. A woman in her 30s, professionally dressed but nervous. I recognized her as Amy Chen, one of Marta's colleagues from the PR firm where my wife worked as a senior account manager. "Thank you for coming," Amy said, glancing around as if expecting surveillance. "I wasn't sure you'd show up. You said I needed to know something. I'm listening." Amy pulled out her phone, her hands trembling slightly. "I've been debating whether to show you this for weeks, but after what happened at the office party last Friday, I couldn't stay silent anymore." She handed me the phone. The screen showed a video, clearly recorded secretly from across a restaurant. The quality was grainy, but I could make out Marta sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, the kind of confident smile that belonged on a billboard. "Who is he?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would destroy whatever remained of my marriage. "Ben Morrison. He's a real estate developer, comes from money. They've been meeting for lunch every Tuesday for the past 2 months. Always the same restaurant, always the same corner booth." Morrison. The same last name as the law firm Linda had mentioned. Too much of a coincidence. "There's more," Amy continued. Marta's been using company resources to research properties for him, insider information about upcoming developments, zoning changes, that sort of thing. It's not exactly legal, and it's definitely against company policy. I scrolled through the phone, finding more photos, more evidence of secret meetings. In one image, Marta was leaning across the table, her hand covering Morrison's. The closeness was unmistakable. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Amy's expression hardened. "Because Marta's been taking credit for my work, undermining me in meetings, and generally making my life heck. She thinks she's untouchable because she brings in big clients. But if the partners knew she was sharing confidential information, you want revenge? I want justice, and honestly, after listening to her trash talk you at the office party, calling you a burden and a mistake from her past, I figured you deserved to know the truth." The words hit like physical blows. A burden. A mistake from her past. 15 years of marriage reduced to regrettable history. "There's something else," Amy said, pulling up another photo. "This was taken last week at the Marriott downtown, room 412. They meet there every Thursday afternoon." The image showed Marta and Morrison entering a hotel room together, his hand on the small of her back in a gesture of casual possession. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m., right when Marta claimed to be in client meetings. "I need copies of everything," I said, handing back the phone. "Already done." Amy produced a flash drive from her purse. Photos, documents showing the information sharing, even some audio recordings from the office. Marta's not as careful as she thinks she is. I pocketed the drive, my mind racing with possibilities. "What do you want in return?" "Just promise me that when this all comes out, you'll make sure the partners know about the company policy violations. I'm tired of watching her get away with everything while the rest of us follow the rules." "Consider it done." Amy nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. "Dave, for what it's worth, I always thought Marta was an idiot for not appreciating what she had. You seem like one of the good guys." "I used to be," I replied. "But good guys finish last, don't they?" After Amy left, I sat in my car, staring at the flash drive. Such a small thing to hold so much power. The old Dave would have confronted Marta directly, would have tried to work things out through counseling and communication. The old Dave believed in fairness and second chances. But the old Dave was gone, ended on a patio by 3 women who thought he was beneath their notice. I started the car and drove toward downtown, toward the Marriott Hotel, where my wife spent her Thursday afternoons. Tomorrow was Thursday. Time to see just how far below Marta's level I really was. My phone buzzed with another text from my wife. "Dave, please come home. We need to talk. I love you." I deleted the message without reading it twice. Love was a luxury I could no longer afford. The city lights blurred past my windows as I planned my next move. Marta wanted to play games? She was about to discover that her boring, mediocre husband had learned a few new rules. I called in sick to work Thursday morning, something I'd done maybe 5 times in the past decade. My supervisor, Mr. Peterson, actually sounded concerned when I told him I had food poisoning. If only he knew the real sickness eating away at my insides. Marta left for work at her usual time, kissing my forehead and reminding me to drink plenty of fluids. The performance was Oscar-worthy. The caring wife tending to her ailing husband before heading off to her secret afternoon liaison. I might be late tonight, she said, adjusting her makeup in the hallway mirror. Big presentation for the Morrison Group account. Could run long. Morrison Group. The audacity was breathtaking. Take all the time you need, I replied from the couch, playing the role of the trusting invalid. I'll probably sleep most of the day anyway. After she left, I showered, dressed, and drove to the Marriott. The hotel lobby was all marble and crystal, the kind of place that charged $300 a night for the privilege of adultery. I found a coffee shop across the street with a clear view of the entrance and settled in to wait. At 2:30 p.m., a silver BMW pulled up to the valet stand. Ben Morrison stepped out, tall, confident, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly salary. He moved with the easy arrogance of someone who'd never been denied anything he wanted. At 2:45 p.m., Marta's red Lexus, a car we'd bought together 2 years ago, pulled up behind the BMW. She emerged wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something sleek and expensive that hugged her curves in all the right places. She'd lost weight recently, claimed it was stress from work. Now I knew the real motivation. They didn't embrace in public, too careful for that. But the way Morrison's eyes traveled over her body, the possessive smile on his face, it told the whole story. I followed them into the lobby, staying far enough back to avoid detection. They took the elevator to the 4th floor while I waited by the gift shop, pretending to browse overpriced chocolates and teddy bears. Room 412, just as Amy had said. I rode the elevator up and found the room, pressing my ear to the door like some pathetic cliche from a bad movie. The sounds from inside left no doubt about what was happening. My wife's voice, breathless and eager in a way I hadn't heard in years. God, Ben, I needed this. Dave's been so clingy lately, like he knows something's wrong. Maybe it's time to put him out of his misery, Morrison replied, his voice muffled but clear enough. File for divorce, take half his assets, start fresh with someone who can actually provide for you. It's not that simple. Dave handles all our finances. He'd make things complicated out of spite. Then we make it simple for him. A little pressure, some public embarrassment. Men like that fold pretty quickly when their comfortable little world gets shaken up. Their laughter felt like acid in my veins. They weren't just betraying me. They were planning to destroy me, to strip away everything I'd worked for and leave me broken and humiliated. I pulled out my phone and started recording, capturing every word of their post-coital plotting. The old Dave would have burst through that door, would have confronted them with righteous anger and wounded pride. But the new Dave was learning the value of patience. I feel bad sometimes, Marta continued. We had some good years together, but I can't spend the rest of my life settling for mediocrity. I deserve better than a middle-aged accountant who's given up on his dreams. You deserve the world, baby, and I can give it to you. My family's development company is about to close the biggest deal in the city's history. We're talking generational wealth. What about your wife? Morrison's laugh was cold and calculating. Sarah's already filed the papers. She gets the house in Connecticut and enough money to keep quiet about my business dealings. Clean break, no complications. So Morrison was married too. Another family destroyed by his entitled selfishness. I had enough evidence to bury both of them, but something kept me listening. Some masochistic need to hear exactly how little my marriage had meant. The information you've been sharing about the zoning changes has been incredibly helpful, Morrison continued. That inside track from your PR firm is worth millions. You should ask for a bigger cut. I'm not doing this for money, Ben. I'm doing it for us. Of course, baby. But money doesn't hurt, especially when we're talking about screwing over the city planning committee. They have no idea what's coming. Corruption, insider trading, and adultery, the trifecta of upper-class criminality. I had everything I needed to destroy both their careers and their relationship. I crept away from the door and took the stairs down to the lobby, my mind racing with possibilities. The old Dave would have gone home, confronted Marta, and demanded an explanation. He would have tried to save a marriage that was already over. But the new Dave had learned something valuable from his wife's betrayal. Sometimes the best revenge required patience, planning, and a willingness to play by new rules. I drove home and waited for Marta to return from her client presentation. When she walked through the door at 7:30, She looked freshly showered and radiant, glowing with the satisfaction of a successful afternoon. "How are you feeling, honey?" she asked, sitting beside me on the couch and feeling my forehead for fever. "Much better," I replied, studying her face for any sign of guilt or remorse. There was none. She was either a sociopath or an incredible actress. "Good. I was worried about you all day. The presentation went well, by the way. I think we're going to land the Morrison Group account." The lies flowed so easily, so naturally. How long had she been living this double life? How many other client presentations had been secret hotel meetings? "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm proud of you." She smiled and kissed my cheek, the same lips that had been on Morrison's body hours earlier. "I love you, Dave. I know things have been stressful lately, but we're going to be okay." "I know we are," I agreed, wrapping my arms around her in a gesture of false comfort. "Everything's going to work out exactly as it should." She relaxed against me, probably thinking she'd successfully fooled her stupid, trusting husband once again. If only she knew that her boring, mediocre spouse was planning something that would make her Thursday afternoon betrayal look like child's play. The game was just beginning. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was drinking coffee and reviewing the evidence Amy had provided when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Jessica, Marta's best friend from the patio conversation. "Dave, we need to talk," she said when I opened the door. Her usual confident demeanor was replaced by nervous energy. "About what?" "About Wednesday night, about what you heard." I stepped aside to let her in, curious about what game she was playing now. Jessica had always been the diplomatic one in Marta's circle, the peacemaker who smoothed over conflicts and maintained group harmony. "Coffee?" I offered, leading her to the kitchen. "Please." She sat at the breakfast bar, fidgeting with her purse strap. "Dave, I want you to know that I never agreed with what Linda was saying. I tried to change the subject several times, but you know how she gets." "Do I?" "She's always been jealous of what you and Marta have. Her own marriage fell apart last year, and she's been bitter ever since. She wants everyone else to be as miserable as she is." I poured 2 cups of coffee, processing this information. Jessica was trying to distance herself from the wreckage, probably sensing that the winds were shifting. "What exactly are you telling me, Jess?" "I'm telling you that Linda's been poisoning Marta against you for months, filling her head with ideas about what she deserves, who she should be with. It's like she's been running some kind of campaign to destroy your marriage. And Marta just went along with it?" Jessica's expression grew uncomfortable. Marta's always been susceptible to Linda's influence. Even in college, Linda could talk her into anything. It's like she has some kind of hold over her. I sat across from Jessica, studying her face. She was telling the truth, but not the whole truth. There was something else, something she was holding back. "What aren't you telling me?" She sighed heavily. "There's a man, Dave. Someone Linda introduced to Marta. A real estate developer with money and connections. Linda's been pushing Marta toward him, telling her he's everything you're not." "Ben Morrison." Jessica's eyes widened. "You know about him?" "I know a lot of things. The question is, what do you know?" "I know Marta's been meeting with him. I know Linda arranged the introduction. And I know they've been planning something that involves you getting hurt." The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Jessica was offering to be an ally, but I didn't trust her motivations. In my experience, people only switched sides when they sensed the winning team was changing. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I've known you for 10 years, and you're a good man. Because I'm tired of watching Linda manipulate everyone around her. And because..." She hesitated, then continued, "Because I think Marta's making the biggest mistake of her life, and someone needs to try to save her from herself. Maybe she doesn't want to be saved. Maybe not. But you deserve to know what you're really fighting against. This isn't just about marriage problems, Dave. Linda's been orchestrating this whole thing like some kind of twisted puppet master." I leaned back in my chair, reassessing the situation. I'd been focused on Marta and Morrison, but Jessica was suggesting a deeper conspiracy. Linda as the mastermind, pulling strings from behind the scenes. What does Linda get out of destroying my marriage? Validation, control, the satisfaction of proving she was right about you from the beginning. She's never forgiven Marta for choosing you over her college boyfriend, the one who became a successful lawyer. The pieces were starting to fit together. Linda's constant criticism, her subtle undermining of my relationship with Marta, her presence at every major decision point in our marriage. She'd been playing a long game, slowly eroding my wife's confidence in our relationship. There's something else, Jessica continued. Linda's been having financial problems since her divorce. I think Morrison's been paying her some kind of finder's fee for introducing him to Marta. She's literally profiting from destroying your marriage. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Not only was my sister-in-law orchestrating my wife's affair, she was being paid for it. The betrayal had layers I was still discovering. I need proof, I said. Jessica reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Linda's not as careful as she thinks she is. She sent me this text last week. The message read, B came through with the bonus we discussed. M is almost ready to make the jump. Few more weeks and this will all be over. B for Ben, M for Marta, Jessica explained. Linda's been giving me updates on their progress like it's some kind of business deal. I photographed the text with my own phone, adding it to my growing collection of evidence. The conspiracy was bigger than I'd imagined, but that also meant more opportunities to bring it all crashing down. What do you want from me, Jess? I want you to fight back, but I also want you to be smart about it. Linda and Morrison think they're dealing with some naive suburban husband who will roll over and give up. Show them they're wrong. After Jessica left, I sat in my kitchen staring at the evidence spread across the breakfast bar. Photos, text messages, audio recordings, financial documents. Enough ammunition to destroy multiple lives and careers. The old Dave would have been overwhelmed by the scope of the betrayal, paralyzed by the complexity of the conspiracy against him. But the new Dave saw something different. Opportunity. They thought they were playing chess while I was stuck playing checkers. Time to show them that the boring accountant had learned a few new games. I picked up my phone and started making calls. If Linda wanted to play Puppet Master, she was about to discover that her favorite marionette had cut his strings. Saturday evening brought our monthly dinner party, a tradition Marta had insisted on maintaining to project the image of a successful social couple. 8 people gathered in our dining room, including Linda and her new boyfriend Marcus, a pretentious art dealer who spoke in constant superlatives. I played the perfect host, pouring wine and making small talk while internally cataloging every slight, every condescending comment, every knowing glance between the conspirators. Marta was radiant, playing her role as the devoted wife while texting Morrison under the table. Dave's been feeling under the weather, she announced during the main course. Haven't you, honey? I keep telling him he works too hard at that little accounting firm. Little accounting firm. The dismissal was casual, automatic. I'd heard variations of it for months without recognizing the pattern. Actually, I said, setting down my wine glass, I've been thinking about making some changes at work. Maybe it's time to be more ambitious. Linda's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Ambition requires vision, Dave. Some people are natural leaders, others are natural followers. You're absolutely right, Linda. Some people do have a gift for manipulation, leadership. The table fell silent. Marcus, oblivious to the undercurrents, launched into a story about his latest gallery opening. But I could feel the tension radiating from Linda and Marta. After dinner, as the guests mingled in the living room, I cornered Linda in the kitchen. Interesting text you sent Jessica last week, I said quietly. Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Something about a bonus and Marta being ready to make the jump. Care to elaborate? Linda recovered quickly, her expression hardening into familiar contempt. You're pathetic, Dave. Reading other people's private messages, spying on your own wife. Is this what you've been reduced to? I've been reduced to a lot of things lately, but pathetic isn't one of them anymore. Marta deserves better than this. Better than you. Marta deserves the truth. About Morrison, about your little arrangement, about the money you're making from destroying my marriage. Linda's composure cracked. You don't know anything. I know you're broke. I know Morrison's been paying you to manipulate my wife. I know about the insider information she's been sharing. Should I continue? The kitchen door swung open and Marta appeared, sensing the tension. What's going on in here? Your husband's having some kind of breakdown, Linda said quickly. He's making wild accusations, talking about conspiracies. Marta looked between us, confusion and concern warring on her face. Dave, what's wrong? This was the moment of truth. I could confront her here, in front of Linda, with our guests in the next room. Or I could continue playing the long game, gathering evidence, and planning my revenge. Nothing's wrong, I said finally. Linda and I were just having a philosophical discussion about loyalty, weren't we, Linda? My sister-in-law nodded stiffly, but her eyes promised retaliation. She'd underestimated me once. She wouldn't make that mistake again. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Guests complimented the meal, shared gossip, made plans for future gatherings. But underneath the social pleasantries, a war had been declared. As people prepared to leave, I pulled Jessica aside. It's starting, I told her quietly. What do you need from me? Keep your eyes open. Linda's going to accelerate her timeline now that she knows I'm onto her. Document everything. What about Marta? I looked across the room at my wife, laughing at something Marcus was saying while Linda whispered urgently in her ear. Marta made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. After the guests left, Marta and I cleaned up in silence. The kitchen felt like a battlefield, every plate and glass a casualty of the evening's hidden warfare. Linda thinks you're having some kind of midlife crisis, Marta said finally. What do you think? She paused in loading the dishwasher. I think you've been different lately, distant. Like you're angry about something but won't tell me what. Maybe I'm just tired of being taken for granted. What's that supposed to mean? I turned to face her, studying the woman I'd loved for 15 years. She was still beautiful, still the person I'd promised to spend my life with. But that person was gone, replaced by someone who could lie to my face while planning my destruction. It means things are going to change, Marta, whether you're ready or not. She stared at me for a long moment, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Then her phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it, and I saw her expression soften into the secret smile reserved for Morrison. I'm going to bed, she said. Don't stay up too late. As she left the kitchen, I heard her typing a response to Morrison's message, probably reassuring him that her pathetic husband was still clueless, still manageable. I finished cleaning up alone, planning my next move. Linda knew I was aware of her scheme, which meant she'd try to accelerate Marta's timeline. Morrison would become more aggressive, more demanding, and Marta would have to choose between her comfortable lies and an uncertain future. The old Dave would have fought to save his marriage, would have tried to win back his wife's love through grand gestures and heartfelt apologies. But the new Dave understood that some things couldn't be saved. They could only be survived. And survival, I was learning, sometimes required becoming someone you never thought you could be. Monday morning brought the call I'd been expecting. Amy Chen's voice was tight with excitement and fear. They know, she said without preamble. Marta knows someone's been watching her. She's been asking questions, trying to figure out who took those photos. What did you tell her? Nothing, but Dave, she's panicking. She called an emergency meeting with Morrison for this afternoon. I think they're going to accelerate their timeline. Good. Panic makes people sloppy. There's something else. Linda came to the office this morning. She and Marta had a heated discussion in the conference room. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught fragments. Something about cleaning up loose ends and making it look natural. A chill ran down my spine. Making what look natural? I don't know. But Dave, I'm scared. These people have a lot of money and power. If they think you're a threat, let me worry about that. Just keep documenting everything. After ending the call, I sat in my office at the accounting firm, staring at spreadsheets while my mind raced through possibilities. Linda and Morrison weren't just planning to destroy my marriage, they were planning to destroy me entirely. The question was how far they were willing to go. I called in another sick day and drove to the law offices of Patterson and Associates, no relation despite the name. James Patterson was a criminal defense attorney I'd met through a client, a hard-nosed former prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime. Dave Patterson, he said, rising from behind his desk. What brings you to my office? I handed him a flash drive containing copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. I need advice on how to handle a conspiracy involving fraud, insider trading, and possibly worse. Patterson's eyebrows rose as he reviewed the files. This is quite a collection. How did you obtain these recordings? The hotel room conversation was recorded from a public hallway. The rest came from willing sources who felt they had a civic duty to report criminal activity. Civic duty, right. Patterson leaned back in his chair. What do you want to do with this information? I want to protect myself and expose the truth, in that order. Smart man. The insider trading alone could result in federal charges. The conspiracy to defraud the city planning committee adds another layer. But Dave, if these people realize you have this evidence, they already suspect. That's why I'm here. Patterson nodded grimly. We need to move fast. I'll contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit and the District Attorney's Office. But in the meantime, you need to be very careful. People have ended for a lot less money than what's involved here. Driving home, I noticed a silver BMW in my rearview mirror, the same car Morrison had been driving at the hotel. It followed me for several miles before turning off, but the message was clear. They were watching me now. At home, I found Marta pacing in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear. She ended the call when she saw me. You're home early, she said, her voice strained. Feeling better. Thought I'd surprise you. I might be late tonight. Another client emergency. Let me guess. Morrison Group? Her face went white. What do you know about Morrison Group? I know they're lucky to have such a dedicated account manager. Someone willing to go above and beyond, share confidential information, meet in hotel rooms to discuss strategy. Marta's composure shattered. Dave, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why my wife of 15 years has been feeding inside information to her lover? Can you explain why your sister's been taking money to orchestrate our divorce? Can you explain why you've been planning to destroy everything we built together? You don't understand. It's not what it looks like. It looks like betrayal. It looks like fraud. It looks like you've chosen money and status over everything we promised each other. Marta sank into a kitchen chair, tears streaming down her face. But I felt nothing, no sympathy, no desire to comfort her. The woman I'd loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Ben loves me, she whispered. He can give me things you never could. Like a federal prison sentence? Her head snapped up. What are you talking about? Insider trading, Marta. Conspiracy to defraud. The FBI tends to take those crimes seriously. You wouldn't. You couldn't. The old Dave couldn't. But you ended him, remember? You and Linda and your boyfriend? You created something new, something harder. Congratulations. My phone rang. Patterson's office. I need to take this, I told Marta. But this conversation isn't over. I walked into my home office and closed the door. Patterson's voice was grim. Dave, we have a problem. Someone's been making inquiries about you. Professional inquiries, the kind that suggest they're building a case to discredit you before you can expose them. What kind of case? Financial irregularities, possible embezzlement from your firm, mental instability. They're trying to make you look like an unreliable narrator. Through my office window, I could see Marta in the kitchen, frantically texting someone. Probably Morrison, probably Linda. The conspiracy was expanding, adapting to the new threat I represented. What do? We move faster than they do. I'm calling the FBI now. Can you get to my office within the hour? On my way. As I gathered my evidence files, I heard the front door slam. Marta was gone, fleeing to her co-conspirators to plan their next move. The house felt different without her. Emptier, but somehow cleaner, as if a poison had been drained from the air. I was loading everything into my car when Linda's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. She got out slowly, her face a mask of cold fury. You stupid, pathetic little man. She said, do you have any idea what you've done? I've told the truth. Revolutionary concept, I know. The truth? You want the truth? Marta never loved you. She settled for you because she was pregnant and scared. But she lost the baby, and she's been trapped with you ever since. The words hit like physical blows. Marta had been pregnant? We'd never had children, never even seriously discussed it. Another secret, another lie. Even if that's true, I said, it doesn't justify what you've done. What I've done? I've tried to free my sister from a life of mediocrity. I've tried to give her the chance at happiness she deserves. By destroying her career and making her an accessory to federal crimes? Linda's confident mask slipped. What are you talking about? Ask your boyfriend Morrison. Ask him about insider trading laws and federal prison sentences. Ask him how much his love is worth when the FBI comes knocking. I got in my car and drove away, leaving Linda standing in my driveway with her mouth open. In the rearview mirror, I watched her fumble for her phone, probably calling Morrison with the news that their carefully constructed plan was falling apart. The old Dave would have felt guilty about destroying so many lives. But the new Dave understood that some people destroyed themselves. They just needed the right push to fall. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Patterson's office, watching FBI agents review evidence of the biggest financial conspiracy our city had seen in decades. "Mr. Patterson," Agent Sarah Williams said, "you've potentially saved the taxpayers millions of dollars and prevented massive corruption in the city planning process." "I just wanted to protect my marriage," I replied. "Your marriage may be over," Agent Williams said gently, "but you've done the right thing." As I drove home that evening, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. The war wasn't over. There would be arrests, trials, media attention, but the truth was finally in the right hands. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You've made a terrible mistake. This isn't over." I deleted the message without reading it twice. Let them threaten. Let them scheme. The old Dave was gone, and the new Dave wasn't afraid of anything they could do. The house was dark when I arrived home. Marta hadn't returned. I poured myself a scotch and sat in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd thought was real. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations, new consequences. But tonight, for the first time in months, I was exactly where I belonged, in control of my own destiny.